would have been shredded like cabbage. You deserve a medal.
No! Don't focus on her. Polygon girls are temporary, but the zone is forever. Welcome back to Halloween in July, bones and ghouls. We're spending the hot summer indoors playing spooky games to hide from the horrors of reality, and this year's theme is Night of the Stalker. But we ran out of Stalker games. But don't you fret, we aren't out of Chernobyl-core post-apocalyptic video games to cover just yet. During the interim, when things were going poorly for the development of the original Stalker, a number of GSC Game World developers broke off from the studio in 2005 and formed 4A Games. What were they to do now that they were no longer involved with the development of a radioactive survival RPG? Well, it's extremely convenient for them that Russian author Dmitry Glukhovsky had just mass-published his smash hit novel, Metro 2033. Glukhovsky first started writing Metro 2033 at the age of 18, and it first saw the light of day in 2002 when he published it online. Things picked up steam, and he got to the point that he had a print publishing deal, and it sent Metro 2033 to every bookstore across Eastern Europe. I'm summarizing a lot of these details here, by the way. The book was sent into mass print in 2005, right as 4A Games was being formed. It could not have been more perfectly timed. Metro 2033 is a post-apocalyptic novel centered around one Artyom, who lives in an underground metro station in the year 2033, as you might have guessed from the title. Those are essentially the only habitable places for humanity, as a nuclear war in 2013 plunged the war into nuclear winter. The novel follows Artyom's travels through the metro stations as he tries to survive and find greater meaning in a world he lives in, all while dealing with mutants, radiation, and other humans that don't want him around. Interestingly enough, if you go on the Barnes & Noble website, the description of the novel mentions the games quite a bit compared to Roadside Picnic's not at all mentions of Stalker. It's also like right on the cover too. Roadside Picnic only mentions Stalker in passing in the forward, I believe, last time I checked, preferring to talk about the movie Stalker instead of the video game, whereas Metro 2033's book has a whole advertisement for the game on the rear inside cover. This might have something to do with the fact that the English localization of Metro 2033, the book, and the game adaptation of the book came out at the same time, which was obviously some orchestrated marketing. But what about the game? Well, Metro 2033 is a hardcore first-person shooter, which has you playing as novel protagonist Artyom, where playing on the big boy difficulties will have you constantly jamming morphine or whatever is in this medkit into your arm with your back against the wall, as you are almost always being overwhelmed by baddies in the Metro system. Metro has you using cobbled together firearms and even some straight up improvised weapons, as you're just barely making it to the next Metro station in time to rearm and get ready for the next horror below the surface and sometimes above. Hey, Charles! Oh yeah, I totally forgot about this plot thread. I should really get around to doing that. Argentine red shrimp are currently in season. We got a bunch of them in the meat and seafood. Oh snap, we gotta get on that, man. Cooking segment's coming early this video. Welcome to this video's cooking segment, everyone. Why are we doing a cooking segment for every video this July? Well, that's because we're running a special over on Patreon where yearly rates are slashed as low as they can go. And if you pledge anything, you'll get your name on my patron apron. And all yearly pledges get this sweet iron-on patch. Pledge yearly at the $5 tier or higher, and I'll make you your own saucy apron with your name embroidered onto it by yours truly. By the way, I actually am making all this stuff myself, save for raw materials. No middlemen involved. It is as indie as we can get. This shrimp scampi recipe was originally loosely based on something I found on the Food Network's website, which I will link below in the description. However, I have iterated on this enough that the recipe is essentially different now, save for a few core things that, like, it's not really shrimp scampi if you don't do this. First orders of business are to get the shrimp thawing and to make our combo butter. Thawing the shrimp is easy enough, even with the Argentine red shrimp being larger than your usual shrimp and having a much more buttery taste to them. Putting them in a strainer that is in turn sitting atop a bowl in the sink and letting cool water run over it should get them nice and ready to go inside of 5 minutes. Meanwhile, take a pound of butter, preferably some high-end stuff, and put it in a mixing bowl. It helps out a lot if you let your butter sit out, like in the kitchen, for a few hours before you do this, so it's softened up to room temperature. And by the way, it is fine to do this, because butter is shelf stable at room temperature for at least a couple weeks. Mix that butter with a whole head of garlic that's been crushed and pressed, a tablespoon or two of oregano, and a chopped up bushel of parsley leaves. This will be a little hard to do at first, but as you mix more and more, it gets easier as the butter gets more malleable, and it should be like pretty much a cakewalk to put it inside a refrigerator container and set aside when it is done. The shrimp should be thawed by now. Pull the strainer out of the bowl, let the loose water drip off, and then set them all down on a paper towel lined half-sheet pan to drip dry and give them a good sprinkling of salt. We'll come back to these in a moment. Time to make the base. Do yourself a favor and get the water for the pasta started right about now, salting it good and putting the lid on top so it boils up quick. We don't want to be waiting around for pasta to get cooked. Then get a large saucepan for the scampi and just have that on standby. Dice up 2 shallots and half of a good-sized onion. A good way to go about this, if you're new to dicing, is to cut the onion in half, which we're going to be doing anyway. Cut it down the side, but not quite all the way through, and then cut the other way, allowing the rings of the onion and your previous cuts to make nice little sauteable bits. Now, chop up some parsley, or since we're already using parsley for the combo butter, if you can get your hands on some fresh spinach, that works really well in scampi. Just dice it up fine. I didn't have time to go out to the farmer's market though, so I'll just be using more parsley. Now take 2 tablespoons of your freshly made combo butter and throw them into the pan with 2 generous tablespoons of olive oil. If you can't tell this already from how I'm doing it, these aren't exact measurements and more of a touch and go type thing. Let that butter fully melt and then gently mix it together before adding in your onion and shallots. Give the onions and shallots a good sweat on high heat in the pan, and once everyone's nice and translucent, it's time to add in that shrimp. The other benefit of sauteing the onions first is not only adding more flavor to what the shrimps are going to be cooked in, but also you won't have to worry about if the pan is hot enough to get all the shrimp sauteed in a timely fashion, because if they're in there too long, they will overcook. A good litmus test to see if your pan is hot enough or if you might need to redo this is when you dump all those shrimp in, there should be an immediate sizzle noise, despite the fact that you just threw a bunch of cold things into a hot thing. Even with these being larger than usual shrimp, they're still gonna cook up fast. And remember, when it comes to shrimp, C is for cooked, O is for overcooked. Parentheses is raw. Do not eat those. You can try to give these a little tossy toss in the pan if you're feeling bold, but just turning them over with some heat-proof tongs also works just fine. As soon as these guys are cooked, which is gonna be barely 3 minutes, but regardless of that, you should go by look, not time, when cooking seafood or other meats. Remove them onto a paper towel lined tray that is new, fresh paper towels, and then cover them with something to preserve their heat. Now that the shrimp are out, it's time to add some dry white wine like a Sauvignon Blanc, and maybe some more combo butter and oil. In fact, yeah, add more of that. You want to make it nice and buttery. The pan is going to be pretty full right about now, but that's okay, because we want this to cook down. We want it to reduce. Now, most shrimp scampi recipes call for adding about half a lemon's worth of juice right about here, but personally, I'm not about that. I prefer to add more of the white wine to cut the richness of the flavor, just because. But if you want to add the lemon, I won't stop you. Go for it, my dude. Also, if you want to, now would be a good time to add in a healthy shake of red pepper flakes to give it that extra heat. By the way, where are we on that pasta water? If the water is boiling, add in your pasta right about now. I'm going for a good old plain spaghetti here. Set a timer for no less than 5 minutes because we're going to be pulling this out as soon as the pasta easily bends in the water. You might even have it in there for less. All right, it's go time. Use a heat-resistant measuring cup to scoop out about half a cup of that starchy pasta water and set that aside. Drain out your pasta and remember to wash your strainer from the shrimp. And then add that pasta water to the reducing sauce that you've got in the original pan and give it a mix. This is gonna act as a bonding agent for everything inside that pan. Also, if you haven't already, go ahead and add your parsley or spinach if you've got it handy. Give that another minute or two to reduce while the pasta gets rid of excess water, or don't, just throw it right in. And then carefully add your pasta to the pan. It's gonna be pretty full, so maybe use those tongs to mix it around it first while it absorbs and then get to tossing, or else it's gonna get messy. Since we barely cooked the pasta, we're fine to let this go for a few more minutes in the pan to let the pasta not only finish cooking, but also to absorb the sauce. Maybe give it a toss or two now if you're feeling brave and the fluids have been absorbed. Add in your shrimp and plate this sucker up. All right, we've had a good meal. Now let's actually talk about Metro. Welcome to Metro 2033, or more specifically, Metro Redux. I have access to both the original and Redux, but chose to play Redux for this video as not only does it play nicer with modern recording software, but there is also the matter of making sure what I am playing here is something that you can easily access. You can't really buy the original Metro 2033 anymore, at least not through traditional means. We start our Metro experience with a flash forward where we're fighting our way to the surface for some unknown purpose, and then things go sideways. Lucky for us, we wake back up in our home Metro station where we get a chance to learn about the world. Life in the metro stations is pretty tough. It's cramped, resources are scarce, and even if you are under the bombed out surface, that doesn't exactly mean that everywhere is safe and radiation-free. Things like gas masks with filters are more common than meat in local stores. That is, if the area you're in has a market at all. The closest Artyom is ever gonna get to seeing the world is the landmarks in his postcard collection, and there's now a whole generation of people that were born in the metro and know nothing of how the world used to be. If that wasn't bad enough, even if you aren't traveling above the surface, any sort of travel in the world of metro is extremely dangerous because the mutants aren't just living above the surface, and there are things called anomalies, which this is Night of the Stalker. Do I need to explain what an anomaly is here? Is everyone good on that? Okay, we're good on that. Thank you. An interesting side effect of society as we know it collapsing is that standardized currency isn't really a thing anymore, since there aren't really any governments around to back it up with anything. Since precious metals like gold aren't exactly common in the metro system, and a pure bartering system is problematic when you consider that it isn't safe to be lugging around all your stuff with you all the time, a new currency has arisen in the metro system: bullets. Specifically, high-end military-grade bullets, which while still were most likely made by the lowest bidder as you do in a military system, they are a damn sight better than the stuff that they're making nowadays. You have your normal bullets, which are your shotgun shells, pistol rounds, automatic rounds, and ball bearings, but you also have your military-grade bullets, which work for your SMG and all rifles. These do a crap ton of damage and also set enemies on fire, but they're also your money. Using military rounds is almost always an I win button in combat, but it comes at the cost of not being able to buy upgrades for your weapon or more ammo for your other guns later on. So early on after the intro segment, and then a short sequence where you'll help some dudes with mutant security, which effectively is your combat tutorial, you'll bum a ride on a rail car to get to another station. This is the first real combat encounter in the game, and even though it is quite literally on rails, Metro does not pull punches. I'm playing on a harder difficulty, which is not nearly the hardest setting, but I already logged a couple deaths just getting through this segment where some low-level monsters chase the trolley you're on. Welcome to Metro. If you are not back against the wall, juggling your guns at all times, you will be dead inside of 5 seconds. This is the life in Metro. The very act of going from one station to another is a life-risking situation, and if you want to travel, you better be strapped. There was a reason why they were so willing to give you all those guns earlier in the game. You need them. Everyone needs them if they want to set foot outside of their station. And if that wasn't hardcore enough for you, even after traveling through the Metro by rail and then taking a job to help another guy get to another station on foot, where you will die to a gap in the floor a few times if you aren't careful, you're eventually going to be forced to head out to the surface. You know, the one that's been bombed out and is completely uninhabitable by humans? Yeah, that surface. I hope to God you remember to grab gas mask filters. It's really easy to miss stuff in Metro, and there are a lot of secrets hidden in every area. Secrets filled with resources that you need. Even with my stream chat helping me out, I missed a ton of stuff, but luckily I had enough luck with finding things like masks that I never ran out of filters. The air above ground is toxic in Metro, and you die quick if you don't have your mask on. And remember to change your filters every few minutes, because asbestos might be a problem for you 30 years from now, but radiation and God knows what else is in the air is a problem for you right now. Luckily, it's pretty easy to keep track of your filters because Artyom has a handy dandy little watch that you can pull up at any time, and also if you're playing on easier difficulties, you get a cumulative timer of how much filter time you have left between all your filters. Metro is actually meant to be played, if you really want to, completely HUD-less, and some of the difficulties just give you specifically that, which I find is a really nice touch, but unfortunately, I am not that hardcore, at least not for my first Metro experience. Back to the surface itself though, the tainted air is the least of your worries. The terrain is often difficult at best and will often lead to you running down time on your filters just trying to get to where you need to go, if not straight up dying by just falling into a frozen river or off a ledge. There's other dudes out there that might see you as an opportunity thanks to all that nice gear you're carrying. Oh yeah, and the place is swarming with mutants, like hordes of mutants. Mutants are fast in this game, and even the ones that go down with a single well-placed shotgun blast are a threat if you don't keep a track of them. Oh yeah, and there's going to be giant demons who fly around and can throw you into the sky, all while soaking up all of your bullets. A lot of your time above ground is going to be going from place to place, hiding under cover to avoid these guys, as it's almost always a better idea to sneak past them even if you're flush for bullets. And just you wait until we have to start fighting organized factions of dudes on the surface. So you made it through the horrors of the metro tunnels, the strange new stations that aren't nearly as peaceful as your home station, and even braved the surface for a while. Now it's time to get back to a more old school fight. Yep, the middle of the game is communists versus the fascists because no one learned anything from the last 2, or I guess 3 in this case, world wars. Poor Artyom gets stuck in a battle between the 2 factions and is almost conscripted into the free healthcare, but luckily finds a friend in the communist station that helps him slip out and progress on his trip to contact the Rangers. As a side note here, we don't really see all that much of either side governing in their chosen format. It's just more 2 totalitarian factions throwing soldiers at each other and, yeah, that's about right. Well, I played enough Call of Duty as a kid to know what to do here. Welcome to the bridge fight. You're gonna be here a while. This bridge between the communist and fascist bases is where they send literally any able-bodied person they come across to shoot at the other guys, and unluckily for you, since you're not on either of their teams, they both want to shoot at you. This bridge fight is likely a test to see if you're gonna be able to finish the game. The bad guys have gun emplacements on both sides that while you can take over, they aren't very useful when you're at the helm. You are being sandwiched between both heavily armed factions, and one wrong move anywhere is going to get you killed dead. Luckily for you, there's a catch at the far end of the tunnel you entered the bridge area from with some night vision goggles and a silenced pistol, which is a life-saving combination for when you're trying to get a foothold on the bridge. If you make it out of this area, you're going to find that you're really well provisioned after picking the ammo off all the bad guys you took down, and also you will have a profound appreciation for full cover that is also near a wall so no one can sneak up behind you. You will start to understand Metro. Alright, you made it out of the bridge fight, good on you. You even got past that armored car and were terrified when you saw the tank that you no longer have to fight in this version of the game, but you still have to do another turret segment that is way harder than the last time you were shooting your guns on a real car. Head out to the next base where you'll be reminded that mutants still exist and you need to save a child who messes with your aim. Now you're gonna be fighting whoever these guys are. Wait. These are just more fascists. Why are there so many of these dudes? Like, I swear, I've gone through an entire Call of Duty's game's worth of fascists at this point, and I have no idea how they're able to recruit or even conscript so many dudes. Oh yeah, and there's another bridge fight where now it's above the surface, and there is a demon flying around attacking you while the fascists are attacking everyone else. The surface adds a lot to these fights, because now on top of having to worry about the demons and other mutants, you need to keep track of your gas masks and filters too. I was stuck in that bombed out building for quite a while. Remember that military grade ammo we talked about earlier? Well, if you remember not to use all of it, it would be a very good idea to be using it to upgrade your guns and top off consumables like health kits, filters, and throwables every time you're in a safe town. Yes, you can find most of this stuff out there on corpses and in old stashes, but if you've got the means to top off before you go back out, you'll be much better off for it. Odds are you might not be able to so easily find shotgun shells if you're going up against rifle using dudes or mutants who don't use guns at all. Oh yeah, and the med kits. Always top off on med kits, because you go through those things like no one's business. But once you're done with all that, you'll most likely have a good chunk of fully automatic change to upgrade your guns, which you very much should be doing. Even the starting automatic rifle, which you should ditch for an AK as soon as possible, does much better when you add stuff like laser sights, which are actually useful in this game, or a silencer. And the pistol basically becomes a sniper rifle with a few handy mods. Seriously, this is like OG Halo levels of pistol sniping. The shotgun is also going from handy to barrels of fun once you kit one of them out. While we're on the note of modding the guns, let's take a sec to appreciate the guns in Metro. I love not only the feel, but the aesthetic of all the weapons in Metro 2033, particularly the shotguns. All the rifles and stuff initially look great with that cobbled together but still deadly effective design, and then when you add mods, they look even better. Like, this is some of the best visible upgrades I've seen since BioShock, if we're counting stuff like the revolver shotgun. Also, while I'm not sure it beats out the shotgun from the original Fear, the revolver shotgun is now one of my favorite scatter guns in video games. It looks awesome, it handles great, it hits like a friggin' truck, and if you're really in a bad bind, you don't even need to reload it all the way, and it can be used as a single shot weapon in desperate times. Oh, and also it's not even the strongest shotgun in the game. And while we're taking this time to restock and relax, let's talk about how Metro is just so damn atmospheric. Like, this game has more atmosphere than it has any right to when we consider that more than 2/3 of this is a sewer level. Metro does such a good job of showing off how dingy the unserviced tunnels can be, while also throwing in just enough supernatural stuff to keep you rooted in how this is not a normal abandoned area. Some bad stuff happened here. Then contrast that with the blinding white snow-covered surface and the everything about the biomass, and Metro really stands out against the other post-apocalyptic games like S.T.A.L.K.E.R or Fallout, which also feature things like abandoned underground facilities and fantastical side effects of radiation. It's worth noting that another thing that sets Metro apart from these two examples is that it's a very linear game. Metro won't go full open world until the third title, but I think that the linear setting does it a favor for letting you take in each area for just long enough for it not to get old. I do kind of wish that it allowed me to go back for a few things, like say get some secrets and collectibles I missed earlier that I know I missed and want to go back for because I was in the middle of the fight, didn't have time to go and collect this thing, but I understand that like they really want to keep a tight fit on the pacing, and the pacing in Metro is really good as far as video games go. So you've made it past the Black Station and met up with the Rangers. Congratulations! You don't need to fight any more humans. This is very bad. Humans don't run through vents and along the walls. Humans have ammo you can loot off them once they're down. Humans usually don't take you down in 2 or 3 hits in the span of a single second. Mutants were always a pretty tough encounter, but in the later game, you're going to have to deal with them in numbers that makes every fight something that you're going to just barely get by on the skin of your teeth. Even with squad mates, hardened squad mates like the Rangers, you're going to be severely outnumbered and above ground most of the time, so you'll be needing to manage filters and other survivability aspects on top of your ammo. So you and the boys are off to find some old launch codes because plot, and you wind up in a big old library on the surface because competent governments totally keep ICBM launch codes inside of a public library. Here is where you will meet some of the toughest enemies in the game, the librarians. Now I know you're supposed to assert dominance on these guys, but I paid for this game and I crave the violence. I shall assert my dominance by leaving no survivors. It took a while to figure out the optimal path to murderify everything in the depository that is not you, but I got it eventually. After many attempts, I learned the optimal method is to open with a sticky bomb right as they spawn in, and then spam shotgun shells between stickies, since while you can't exclusively use the sticky bombs to deal with them, you won't have enough if you use exclusively throwables to get through the whole library. You know, once I got it down, it was pretty satisfying to just plow through these guys. Like, it was a good point of progress for me to see that now I am consistently able to deal with big monsters on my own, and while my resources are draining quickly, I know how to manage them well enough to where I'm not going to be in a bind in the next area. Also, I did not pay my late fees in this library. I chose violence. Once you're out of the library and into the Sparta settlement, you get your hands on the really cool stuff. Remember how I said the revolver shotgun wasn't even the best shotgun in the game? Let's meet the other 2 non-double barrel shotguns. There's the kooky bicycle thing, which I ended up not using because even better yet, there is a belt-fed machine gun shotgun, which burns through your ammo pool in a matter of seconds, but it also turns even the toughest enemies into a fine mist with a single click. This thing is an unstoppable beast that is only limited by your ability to find shells. If that wasn't enough for you, you've also got the high-end rifles, a flamethrower, which I was pleasantly surprised by the ammo availability after you get it, which made me regret not taking it after its introduction because I love my pistols. Oh, and a goddamn railgun. In hindsight, I probably should have ditched my pistol for the flamethrower or something because it's practically a crime not to use all this wild stuff by the time you're in the end game. Welcome to the missile launching place thing. You thought the library was bad? This is worse. Without going into detail for story spoilers, you're in this place that's starting to look like a little bit of a Videodrome cameo, and holy hell does it throw a lot of mutants at you. Not only are they throwing buckets of those mutants at you that you faced from earlier in the game, but there's a ton of new stuff that you won't immediately know how to deal with, including stuff that you're just gonna have to waste your ammo on. It is entirely possible that you will run out of ammo somewhere in this facility and be reduced to just desperately trying to stab things until they go away. You will barely make it to the segment where you will violate OSHA regulations because you are certainly not certified or even trained to operate that crane. Once you've got everything set up here, you ammo up and you gotta head off to that radio tower. And hey, would you look at that? We're at the spot we saw in the flash forward prologue. We must be getting into the serious stuff. So without spoiling the game or the book too much, let's get into Artyom's arc. Artyom is an orphan of the metro station who was taken under the wing of the station's commander. He's getting set up to become a part of his station's defense force when one of those cool dudes from earlier, the Rangers, shows up and says that a station is under attack by a group of mutants known as the Dark Ones, or depending on who you ask, Homo Novus, the next step in human evolution. The station gets slammed by lesser mutants pretty hard, and the Ranger, named Hunter, gives Artyom his dog tags as a sort of royal seal and asks him to travel across the metro system and talk to the head Ranger and a few other high-ranking metro commanders to tell them that they need to do something about these Dark Ones. After a series of wacky adventures, Artyom and a few of the Rangers find themselves in the Polis station, but the dudes in charge there don't want to help help out with this Dark One problem, so they decide they're just gonna find a way to nuke them because that's never caused any problems in the past. They find the launch codes in the library, and they fight over to a radio tower they can use in order to send a guided signal to obliterate the Dark One problem. Okay, it's spoilers time. You know what to do if you don't want them. So throughout this game, Artyom has been having these weird psychic invasions from the Dark Ones, where the Dark Ones will visit him and your instinct is to run, which is also because a lot of the time you just straight up die if you don't run away from them. Turns out this was them trying to peacefully make contact with you, and they were sort of psychically following you along to judge your character. In order to get the quote-unquote good ending, you need to do every last good boy thing you can possibly do, which is not immediately apparent, and I easily missed a bunch of these. Like, a lot of these are like almost as hard to find as secret stashes or are really easy to miss. You'll know when you've done one though because you'll hear a little water drop noise. If you do all the good boy things and kill as little as possible, you'll get the good ending at the end. But I paid for the game and I am going to do all the violence it can possibly offer me. If you do the normal people ending, the Dark Ones will use their psychic powers to try and stop you from activating the tracking beacon, but after an extended psychic invasion weirdness segment, you do it anyway. I'm told that the good ending is where you just turn the thing off, but the bad ending is canon, so I technically chose right. If I had to sum up Metro 2033 and Metro Redux, I say that despite both games sharing a lot of storytelling elements, they are essentially the opposite of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R games. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is an open world game focusing on discovery, exploration, and building up your kit, and Metro 2033 is a foil to that, as it's a linear game that focuses on its storytelling, tight levels, and making the best out of what you are given. Both of these are great in their own right, and both have a place in the Night of the Stalker, as 4A is essentially the S.T.A.L.K.E.R team splintering off to make a different game, so it's kind of like a lineage type deal. Don't forget that we're doing Halloween in July, where the yearly patron rates are slashed as low as they'll go, and anyone who pledges not only gets their name on the patron apron, but also all yearly pledges get a special Charlatan Wonder iron-on patch. Pledge yearly at the $5 tier or higher, and you get your own apron with your name embroidered on it by me, because seriously, I am making all of these myself so that I can give them to you at lower rates. In the meantime, stay tuned for more S.T.A.L.K.E.R-esque games where we'll wade into the radiation once more for some spooky good fun. Until then, stay safe, stay indoors, wear your sunscreen when you gotta go out, wash your hands regularly, and enjoy this cat video. Saucy boy, what's got you in such a mood? You've got my backpack to sit on, you got the battle mat to sit on, you got all your favorite sits. But you've been running around screaming. Is it because the AC is all loud? You trying to play it off cool? Like, no, I'm not spooked. I'm just a loaf. Your tail betrays you. What's got a boy so spooky? Would you like a pet? Jeez! What's got you in a mood? Yeah, he didn't even draw blood. I see all my tabs there for all the battle mats so we can just seamlessly change between settings. Do you just want to be the Tarrasque? Have you murder everyone in the party so I don't have to DM for 8 people anymore?